Mafia the Definitive Edition. Where do I even begin? This game is absolutely massive, and it's a remake of one of the best games ever made. It's got a tough act to follow, I suppose. I was going to have this big scripted review, and then I realised that it didn't feel personal enough. And then I realised that just doesn't work for this game. I can't sit down and write a script for the Mafia Definitive Edition because all it would say is fantastic and bloody brilliant. And when 2K reached out to me and asked if I wanted to play the preview build, I of course said yes. Now this video is not sponsored. All of the opinions that you hear in today's video are my own. Believe me, I don't want to see the original Mafia tarnished by a remake. I literally completed Mafia 1 last week, so it is fresh in my mind. I fell in love with that game, and I understand that it is an incredibly important game, not only for the Czech Republic, but in terms of open world games, the amount of immersion and detail in that game is second to none. So of course, like most people, I was a little bit worried. I made that very clear when Hangar 13 released a trip to the country gameplay. There were a lot of UI markers pointing where to go. Part of the original Mafia was fantastic because it didn't tell you. You had to work it out for yourself, but it wasn't to the point where you'd get lost and be running around in circles all day. It was designed in a way where you would know where to go realistically, and you'd feel rewarded for finding things out. And they've listened. They have listened, and that's amazing. So I know you're all sat there wanting to hear the negatives about the Definitive Edition. What did this game do wrong? There are two major ones for me in this entire preview build that I've played. You've got to remember that all of the game's systems I've been able to experience, and they're not going to be changing before release. And the two things that I'm going to be talking about are game systems. I'm not talking about specific missions in this video, I'm talking about the core game mechanics. So this is going to carry over to release. Number one, interactivity. In Mafia 1, and even Mafia 2, you could go into a house and open up all different doors. You could turn on and off light switches, turn on faucets, flush the toilet if you wanted to. In Mafia 1, you could go up to literally any pedestrian and click on them, and they would have a little piece of dialogue. And yes, of course, it would be repeated a lot, but there was that sense of immersion that was added by the interactivity in the game. And unfortunately, Mafia 1 drops the ball in this aspect. Doors that you are allowed to enter are marked. So let's say you're playing with an Xbox controller. That'll be a little X on the door handle to show that you can open this door. You can no longer interact with pedestrians. From what I could see, there was no way to interact with light switches and stuff like that. Now, is this that major? Personally, I believe it is quite important. It's what made Mafia so interesting. You could discover all these little attentions to detail with interactivity, and I think by taking this out, it loses a bit of the experience. And number two is related to weapons and combat in general. It's safe to say that this was heavily built using Mafia 3's engine. And in combat, Mafia 3 was fantastic. It had a fully working cover system, you had really powerful shotguns that would blow enemies backwards, and yes, they have carried that over to this game, it's amazing. But unfortunately, they also carried over the fact that you don't have a combat role. So no, you can unfortunately no longer reload immediately like you could in the original game, even though I think that was probably a bug. Was the role practical? Kind of. 9 times out of 10, if you tried to roll into a room with a guy with a shotgun, you'd be dead. But it was cool. I just don't understand why they took this out. And the second part of that relates to weapons. They killed the Tommy gun. They killed my Tommy gun. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. You know how much I fell in love with the Tommy gun in the original game. You single fire that thing, it was incredible. Not only is the ammo no longer 200, it's a lot less, I think it's around 50, but it also just doesn't feel that good, and I don't know why. But also the fact that unfortunately we've taken on the current game conventions of having only a limited amount of weapons in your inventory. In the original game, it was around the time when Doom would allow you to carry practically anything you bloody wanted, and it was before the time when Call of Duty came out and only let you carry 2 guns. It had this fantastic middle ground with this inventory system where, let's say, you could carry 3 different pistols, a Tommy gun in your hand, and a shotgun in your inventory. It felt realistic, it felt like he had a carry weight system. Unfortunately, this game now uses a weapon wheel. And while weapon wheels can definitely work, as we've seen in Grand Theft Auto 5, it just doesn't work here. We are now limited to 1 pistol and 1 big gun, so either a shotgun or a Tommy gun, 1 baseball bat or a knife. And I feel personally that that's wrong. And those are my negatives. These are things that I found the most jarring while playing, and the things that took me a little bit back after only recently completing Mafia 1. Coming from a game from 2002 to a game nearly 20 years later, and it having less options feels weird. But of course, we're forgetting the bigger picture here. And that is the fact that this game is not only massive, but it looks phenomenal. It plays really well. And it does a lot of really interesting things in terms of developing on the characters that we fell in love with in the original game. And that's what I want to go into next. Now I'm going to be timestamping these so you can go between different sections. We've just covered negatives. Let's move on to characters, because I think that is probably the most important part of Mafia. I'm going to get it out of the way with right now. I'm not big on Tommy. I don't like how he acts. He doesn't act like Tommy Angelo. Tommy Angelo was a taxi driver with a heart of gold who unfortunately ended up in a life of crime. He was the moral compass for the entire Salieri family. And in this game, from what I saw early on, it didn't feel like that. There's a line early on in Fair Play that really didn't sound like Tommy.
Tomorrow morning they start coming. Whole city. They smuggle in hooch. There's fighting. I hate it.
Ah, come on. Name a better place to pick up a dame than this place this weekend.
He wouldn't have said something like that. He was quite a reserved guy in the original game. And also, I'm not that big on his design. I don't like how he looks. I mean, he looks great, but he looks too good. He looks like a lead man, when Tommy Angelo didn't in the original. I think that's what made it more believable. So basically, my issue here is he's too good looking. God damn it. But let's talk about the characters I do love. And I've got to say right now, Paulie. I bloody love Paulie. He is the best character in this game. I love him. I'm going to show you a couple of my favourite Paulie moments.
Cow says moo and the chicken says quack. What does the bird say?
I don't know, but the security guy back there says you gotta go home.
Guy's an asshole. You should show some respect.
Well, that's true, but I'm saying you gotta go home too, before you resurface the pit lane.
Well, okay then. I guess. Home? Brought me home? Maybe that's, yeah, a good idea. Yeah, well, okay, I'm gonna...
Sweet dreams, tough guy.
I'm gonna... Yeah, I don't feel so good.
Fantastic casting, fantastic actor. I love what he's doing here. I think he is absolutely amazing. And an interesting part of this is the fact that they really develop on his story. Paulie in the original game I found was very similar to Sammy. At points they were indistinguishable. I remember there was a couple of times where I got mixed up who I was talking to. In this game, that's not the case at all. Paulie blatantly cares, but he's obviously playing up the bravado. And there's a perfect scene with him and Ralphie that I really like.
Hey, genius! Get your head out of your ass!
What the fuck there, Paulie? You can't just sneak up on a guy like that.
I'm sorry, Ralphie. I'm just busting your balls.
See, you're still limping. Guess we got two cripples working here.
We ain't nothing alike. You got that, Ralph?
Sure, Polly. Yeah.
But you also see these really touching moments like this.
You're doing real good since you joined the family, but you know you got it easy, right? Me and Sam, we keep the real stuff from you.
That right, huh?
You don't know what it's like. You get the call to see the Don and your mind's race and done some bad shit, Tom.
We're all in this together. I do what the Don asks when he asks it. Just like you.
You're like me, you can't just shut it down, blank it out like Sam does. Go home to whoever the hell he goes home to.
Hey, Polly, you're drunk. You're gonna have to clam up for your own sakes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Throughout the missions I've been able to play, there has been a lot more focus on developing the characters than there was in the original game. In the original game, you would go to mission, and you'd have the odd cutscene, and yes, they would develop the characters a little, but a lot of the development happened off-screen. You'd hear about it. Characters like Sarah, for instance, you'd hear about Sarah, but you only in theory ever saw her once. In this game, you see her multiple times before anything starts to happen. You build up this relationship with her realistically. I really don't want to get into spoiler territory here. All I'm going to say is you see a lot more of Sarah, and that's all I'm going to say. There's a lot more of her, and it really adds to the story, and that's what I wanted from the original game.
You got a girl, right? I don't want you blowing all that on booze and whores.
Something, huh? Cheers.
Nah, but maybe I'll buy my mom a new coat.
Good boy. Go get yourself a drink.
Congratulations, big hero.
Nah, I just got lucky's all.
Well, I had my money on the other guys, so drinks are on you.
Oh.
There. Now you're ready for the pictures.
Thanks.
And hey, when you're done celebrating, you might want to go find your buddy Polly. He's so drunk, he's gonna get hit by a parked car.
Yeah, okay. I'll get him home safe.
I think the one that surprised me most, and is going to surprise you most, is Salieri. This is, I know I'm going to get hate for this, this is my favourite Salieri. And I'm going to show you the scene here where I fell in love with him.
Now, Polly and Sam have already vouched for you. But you need to understand we have a few rules around here, so you listen and listen good. First, no cursing on the premises. There's a million words out there. And the man who needs to resort to fuck this and fuck that is just ignorant or lazy. Second, we don't deal in the hard stuff. I don't want any dope fiends in this neighborhood. We'll let Morella poison his own people if that's what he wants. Finally, stay out of trouble with the cops. We only have a few on the payroll. And if you cross the line, the rest will come after you. You understand?
Yes, Mr. Salieri.
Then I'm gonna only ask you for one more thing, Tommy. I don't keep Paulie and Sam around just because they're strong. A lot of guys out there bigger and tougher than these two. And I don't keep Frank on the payroll because he's smart. Though he is an artist with the numbers. All these guys in this room, they're here because they have the only thing that matters to me. The only thing that should matter to any of us. You know what that is, Tommy?
They're loyal.
That's right. Now you stay straight with me, you're gonna be living the high life, Tom. But you abuse my trust.
Don Salieri, you won't ever need to worry about me.
Okay, then. Welcome to the family. Excellent. Now I'm starving. Luigi, let's eat.
Welcome.
Our barman Luigi is not much of a cook. But his daughter Sarah, Maron.
He cares. Compared to Morello, who uses his men as pawns, Salieri seems to care. The actor they picked for him is perfect. His voice acting, his delivery, everything works, and I love that. Some of the other characters, obviously, including Vincenzo and Ralphie. Ralphie is perfect. Ralphie is exactly the same. It's almost like they've got the same actor. Like, even in terms of looks and stuff, he is identical to the original. If you loved Ralphie like I did, you're gonna love Ralphie in this.
Don't let me catch you loafing off again.
One day I'm gonna cut your brake line, asshole.
Vincenzo's almost exactly the same as well. They haven't really changed him that much.
Polly! Oh, she's gonna sing! Who's this then?
Vinny, this here's Tommy Angelo.
Frank is also almost exactly the same. He looks identical to the original game. They did a really bloody good job here.
Thanks for waiting, Tom. The Don and I had to go over last month's numbers again.
Sure. So what's the job?
I want you to help Sam and Paulie with the shipment we've got coming in tonight.
The good stuff?
Straight from Canada.
And of course, we've got Lucas Bertone. And Lucas Bertone is really young in this. He's about 20 years younger than he was in the original game.
Tommy Angelo.
Lucas Bertoni. Oh, ain't she a thing of beauty?
We don't have much time.
Hey, I'm a fast worker. Sit tight.
Characters are incredibly important, and they add to the story, and that is my next section. The story here is going to be the same, but they've added in, as I said, a lot of new avenues and more depth to these story elements. So Fair Play, for instance, once you completed that race, that was it. Cutscene, and then on to the next mission. In this, you actually get to explore the racetrack and its grounds, and there's even a massive get-together with a load of people, including Salieri, Lucas Bertone. They're all there, and they're all celebrating, and Sarah even mentions this a mission earlier, saying that she's preparing for this big race, and she's getting all this food ready. And I love that. I think the main thing I could take away from this game is depth. There's a lot of it. This is not going to be a cutscene, play a mission like the original game was. There's a lot more to it. Gameplay is my next section, and this includes driving, handling, and gunplay, and kind of exploring this open world. It's fantastic. They've taken what they've learnt from Mafia 3 and worked on it. I really love how Tommy moves. You have the ability to do parkour in terms of climbing over fences now. Let's say you wanted to jump into someone's back garden being chased by the police, you can do that. This even plays into certain missions like we saw in The Running Man, and in that you have different paths and avenues through that alleyway, and I really like the amount of option you have there. Driving is another thing that they have nailed. I think this is probably one of my favourite driving games in years. The handling in this is fantastic. If you loved the beefy V8s from Mafia 3 and Mafia 2 and throwing those things around corners, you're going to love this game. You have a simulation mode. You also have a normal handling mode if you wanted. And yes, the speed limiter is still in here, and it's fantastic. It works as it should. Police chases and car missions in this game are an absolute joy, and I love them so much. What you're seeing in the background right now is taken from Fair Play. This is intense. I don't know why they have the time limit so short here. I am playing on classic mode, and I want to talk about classic mode in a minute. But yeah, the time limit here is incredibly short. Gunplay feels fantastic. Having a cover system is nice. The shotguns are the best weapon in the game, by far. You blow a guy away with these and they go flying. They're fantastic. I wanted to talk about the classic mode, because this is something that they added after they released that gameplay footage from a trip to the country about a month ago now. The community kind of had a bit of an uproar, not in part by my video, but we had some things to say about it. There were some things that were an issue, and good God, they have done a lot to this, and they have really listened, and I think that is incredible. So the classic mode, which you've been seeing this entire gameplay, basically means that police are a lot more realistic. Gunshot wounds will kill you. Your health only regenerates up to 25%. Now, would I have liked this if you hadn't regenerated health? Maybe. On top of that, they've also limited the amount of things that pop up on the UI telling you where to go. I think that they really listen there, and I think that's fantastic. And also, the fact that, yes, if you have ammo in your clip when you reload, you will lose that ammo, and that's what people wanted, and they listened, and they did that, and I think that's fantastic. The fact that they added this in the space of about a month, not even that, means that they're not only listening, but it means that they care, and I've really got to say well done to Hangar 13. I'm hoping some of the things that I said at the start of this video they could also maybe take into account. Maybe give us the Tommy gun for the original game. I don't care if it looks like the original game's Tommy gun, just put it back in. Now the last two things I want to talk about here are the world and sound. So Lost Heaven is almost identical to the original game. There are a couple of differences here, and I think they're for the best, apart from one. So let's talk about that. Salieri's bar is no longer where it used to be. They've moved it a block across. I don't know why, even though the original shortcut coming out of the underpass tunnel is still there, you can still go down that little alleyway, it no longer leads you to Salieri's bar. On a positive though, Vincenzo's has now moved from around the corner to be right next to Ralphie's garage, and talking about garages, you now have a garage. Yes, you can park your cars in here. Any car that you take during a mission, you can have saved to the garage, and you are able to customize the cars now. This is fantastic. This was probably my biggest surprise when I found out you could do this. So let's say you've got a old Model T style car. Here we got the Bolt. You can have it so it hasn't got a roof. You could have it so it's convertible with the hood up. You could have it pink. You could have it any color that is in the list of colors, and you can even change the interior colors, and every vehicle so far that I've seen has had modifiable parts. So let's say you have a car with a wheel on the back. You can have it so it doesn't have the wheel on the back. Cars all feel unique because of this, and I really like that this has been added, and I think this is better than Mafia 3's system, but not as good as Mafia 2's system. Mafia 2, of course, allowed you to completely customize the cars with whatever color you wanted. Also, it allowed you to change the number plates, and of course, that's unfortunately not a feature here. One thing I do like is Lucas Bertone has been moved closer, so you come over the big bridge, and you then take that right, and instead of having to take a left, then a right, now you can just go right off the bridge, and it's right there. And I love that. I think that's a lot better, and it's a lot easier to get to. Seeing as, of course, you're going to be traveling there so bloody much. And also, the countryside has seen a massive overhaul. It looks great. I love the countryside in this version of the game. It really is absolutely stunning. And also, as you've probably been seeing in the background, yes, stealth is a thing. Stealth works quite well, actually. I quite like stealth. You can also still pick up the bodies and move them if you wanted to. And yeah, it works really well. So the last thing I want to talk about is sound. It's something that I think is quite important. I like to have immersive sound in my games. I think one of the biggest parts of this is language, because yes, you can now have the game in Czech. You can choose from whatever language is on the list, and there's quite a few. This is really nice, because in the original game, it was English, or you had to uninstall the game, go into your good old game settings, set good old games to Czech, and then reinstall the game. It was a pain in the ass. This allows you to play the game in practically whatever language you want from the main menu, and that's fantastic. And yes, you can have subtitles of also any language you want. So let's say you wanted Czech with Japanese subtitles, bloody go for it. I think the biggest highlight for me was the car sounds. I love how the cars sound in this game. They are amazing. You hear everything. You hear each gear going. You hear the brakes. You hear all the parts of the car. And when it's raining outside and you have your hood down, you hear the little splashes of rain on the hood behind you. Immersive sound design is great, and they've done a fantastic job here. And yes, we now have 2 radio stations.
Downpour, with fender benders occurring in Oakwood and Chinatown. A more serious accident has occurred near the White Harbor Hotel, which is causing traffic to back up on the East Marshall Bridge all the way into downtown.
There may be more added in the later missions, but the 2 that we have right now are fantastic. They all play realistic music. When you're driving, you no longer have those same 2 songs playing over and over and over again. And yes, you can turn off the radio if you wanted to, which is also really nice. And there we have it. What are my final verdicts on this preview build? Now, of course, this is a preview build and not the final release. Most of the stuff I've talked about in today's video are system bound that are going to be the same as release. I deliberately didn't talk about certain little story bits that may get changed in a month or so. I wanted to talk about the stuff that was going to remain the same. And my opinion right now is that this is definitely worth the purchase when this game comes out on the 25th of September. I have loved this so much. I've played through it 3 times. I love this game. I really do. Of course, Cyberpunk's coming out this year, and that's going to be a massive game. But personally, for me, I feel more of a connection to the Mafia series than I do to this new IP that's coming out. And I think this is going to be my game of the year as of right now. But either way, I recommend this without a doubt. If you loved the original game, there's something for you here. If you've never played Mafia, this is the best place to start. I would say with this now coming out, I would recommend playing this over the original game, just because of course it looks a lot better, but also the fact it adds a lot more story elements and depth that the original game unfortunately didn't have. I want to hear what you thought from what you've seen. Tell me, leave comments down below, please share this, and I want to thank again 2K for letting me play this build and allowing me to talk about it freely and give my own opinions, because these are my own opinions. I wouldn't have done this if they had said to me, no, you need to be positive completely about the game, because that's not who I am, that's not what this channel stands for. I also want to thank you guys for allowing me to get to the point where I'm able to do this. I also want to thank the multitude of Russian game websites that picked up the story that I was doing these videos. It's really bloody weird. Didn't expect that. So hello Russia, how are you? Yes, it's very odd. I'm famous apparently in Russia, so that's awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, but until next time, that's me. Out. Bye, guys.
What's up?